Hi, welcome. I'm Margaret Mueller. I'm the President and CEO of the Executives Club of Chicago, and I'd like to welcome you all to today's program. It has been a compelling season this year. We've had the great fortune of hearing from many visionary female leaders across a wide range of industries as part of our renowned Women's Leadership Series. Before we begin, it is my privilege to announce our head table guests. Please hold your applause until they have all been introduced. Kara Burns-Pan, Chicago Market Executive, Bank of America. Carrie Heitman, Executive Vice President and Chief Legal Counsel, NiSource. Julie Roth Novak, CEO, PartySlate. Coco Meers, co-founder Equilibria, founder and CEO PrettyQuick, and our moderator today. Agustina Sartori, founder and CEO, Glam ST. Jody Lavoie, Executive Director, Female Strong and the Young Entrepreneurs Academy. Dan Ryan, President, Central Region, JLL, and Director, the Executives Club of Chicago. Denise Paul, President and CEO, Energy BBDO, and the Board Chair of the Executives Club of Chicago. Allyson Robinson, Founder and CEO, The Mom Project. Ita Ekpoudom, Partner, GingerBread Capital. Jeff Atkins, Managing Director, Energy BBDO, and John Martin, CEO Emeritus, Antares Capital, and Board Director, Executives Club of Chicago. Thank you all for being here today and for your support and commitment to the club. I also want to take a moment to thank all of our generous sponsors. The tremendous sponsorship of our Women's Leadership Series speaks volumes to the Chicagoland's business community's commitment to women's leadership. I want to personally thank all of you for your ongoing support of this extraordinary programming, without which we could not do what we do. So first, our Women's Leadership Series Gold Series sponsors, Merrill Lynch, NiSource, Magellan, and Energy BBDO. Today's program's gold sponsors, Discover, Northwestern Medicine, and William Blair. Our silver sponsors, Antares Capital, CIBC, Ingredion, JLL, Silicon Valley Bank, United Healthcare, and Ventas. Our technical sponsor, Shure, and our media partners, The Wall Street Journal, WBEZ Chicago, and the Chicago Latino Network. Please join me in thanking the many companies who made today's program possible. Most importantly, I want to thank all of you members. Thank you for being part of the Executives Club. Your participation is vital to all that we do. And so thank you so much for being here today. So following lunch, we're going to hear from 5 relentless female entrepreneurs who will share the trials and tribulations of navigating the startup world and ultimately finding success beyond the evident barriers that they faced as women. Now, there are many powerhouse women entrepreneurs in this room who have come out in full support of the women on stage today. It's an impressive audience that we have here today, and thank you all for joining us. Today is a celebration of all of you. But I want to highlight what brought these 5 particular entrepreneurs together on stage today. So each of these women have started companies to disrupt their industries for the direct benefit of women. They had underserved women's needs at the center and the purpose of their companies. It is what has driven their business success, and that is something that we wanted to highlight and celebrate today. We are all fortunate to be in the company of many amazing business leaders in this room. Each one of you has a tremendous story of women's leadership to share, how you have supported and bolstered women's success in business. I hope that over lunch, you're able to connect with each other and explore how we can all support each other's missions. Thank you so much. Enjoy your lunch. We'll be back in about 10 or 15 minutes.
My name is Kara Pan. I'm the Chicago Market Executive at Bank of America Merrill Lynch. I'm so glad to be here today for professional reasons, because what a fantastic topic we have, but also for personal reasons. I am the daughter of a woman who founded her own company and has been the CEO for almost 40 years. I understand all the details that can go into that on the good side and the bad side. So I'm really excited to hear our panelists today. Before I get to introducing our panelists, though, I wanted to share a statistic that I read recently that really surprised me. Startups with all female founders receive 2.2% of the venture capital invested in startup companies. That is stunning, 2.2%. And frankly, that's not right. But investing in women entrepreneurs and women-owned businesses is not just the right thing, it's also good for business. Women-owned Women own 4 out of 10 businesses in the US. Women-owned businesses generate $1.4 trillion in revenue. It's critical that we all invest in programs that bring resources, support, and guidance to emerging women leaders, women entrepreneurs, and women business owners. Because it's the right thing to do and for our own bottom line. Everyone in this room has the ability to help. And I think today's panel will offer valuable insights for us all. For the last 15 years, Bank of America and our wealth management brand Merrill Lynch have been proud to support the Executives Club because of the value they bring through conversations like the one we're about to hear. In today's panel, we'll hear from female founders and chief executives, Julie Roth Novack, Allyson Robinson, Agustina Sartori. These women lead flourishing startup companies and will share about their inspiration as owners, the barriers and challenges they've faced, and what it took for them to get from startup to thriving. Our CEO panel is joined by Ita Ekpoudom, bringing perspective from the investment side of the startup equation through her work with GingerBread Capital, and how firms like hers are working to invest capital in female entrepreneurs and their startups. Leading today's discussion is Coco Meers, co-founder of Equilibria and founder of Pretty Quick, which was acquired by Groupon. Coco is an important figurehead in the Chicago startup community and the perfect voice to guide today's panel. One quick housekeeping note: please feel free to submit questions for today's panel by texting EXEC to 22333. Thank you, and please welcome Ita, Julie, Allison, Agustina, and Coco to the stage.
Hi, everyone. Are our mics on? Can you hear us? Thank you all so much for being here, to the Executives Club for having us and for curating this discussion and creating a platform for this really important dialogue that we're about to have. Thank you to our sponsors, and thank you to all of you for taking time out to be here in what is a very busy season. We are here to celebrate women in business. We are here to shine a light on the success stories of the 4 women that we have on the panel, and we are here to participate as a community in this discussion together because, as Margaret mentioned, we have many really incredible business leaders in the room and collaborators in the room, and so thank you all for taking time out to talk about women in leadership roles, both in companies they've started, in companies they're backing, and the way in which we can all participate in that ecosystem. So my name is Coco Meers. I am the co-founder of Equilibria and an active angel investor in women. Before becoming an angel investor, led a startup out of the University of Chicago through many phases of failure and eventually getting to the right path and growing such that we were acquired by Groupon in 2015, where I led a business unit at Groupon in the health, beauty, and wellness division also. So my entire career, pre-startup, I was with L'Oreal in New York, so coming from the CPG brand management side in New York and then in Paris. My whole career has been about advancing self-care for women and creating value around that in various business models, both early stage, later stage, on the physical product side and on the digital product side. My current company, Equilibria, is a high-growth, recurring revenue company in the CBD and cannabis space. And now I am going to ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves, and then we'll get into the meat of the discussion. So why don't we start with Agustina?
Hi everybody. My name is Agustina. I'm originally from Uruguay, South America. I started a company called Glam where we build augmented reality in the beauty space. I started this company when I was actually in the end of my degree of telematics engineering. So I had to do a project, and I decided I wanted to do something that actually people could use. So at that time, we built this technology that allowed you to identify what was your skin tone and recommend you the right products. After that, right out of college, I worked 1 year as a programmer, and with this project, it became my company. I got clients in Montevideo, in Uruguay, in Argentina, then I moved to Chile. In a startup, I went through a startup program called Startup Chile, where I met a lot of US entrepreneurs that were in this program too. And here I realized that if we really wanted to make an impact, we actually had to be in the US. Because in the US is where companies have budgets to invest in innovation, and where people are actually making decisions that have to do with innovation and technology. So that's how my journey started. I moved to San Francisco, to Silicon Valley. Fast forward, I went through 500 startups, an accelerator program there. After that, I raised more than $2 million from investors in the US, and which was a whole interesting journey with a lot of obstacles and challenges. And so after that, like actually last year, one of our main clients was at that time Ulta Beauty. With Ulta Beauty, actually, they acquired my company a year ago. It's been a year now already. And the reality was that when we were talking about the acquisition, I really felt like we had similar visions of what we wanted to build. And they really wanted and believed that AR, augmented reality, was key for beauty. Not only because it brought experimentation with finish, color, textures, but also because thinking about beauty, for me, beauty was about empowering. For me, beauty was about really discovering and be who you want to be. And I found that at Ulta, they actually had the similar values and the similar vision, so we believed in the same things. So that made it amazing to now be part of this organization and continue to grow this vision. As part now of the digital innovation team, we are working on technologies with AI, AR, and we're bringing new digital experiences out there and really reinventing what beauty means in terms of technology. So I'm excited for that.
Thank you, Agustina. Should we do Allison?
Yeah, hello everyone. Allyson Robinson. I'm the founder and CEO of the Mom Project. Before becoming an entrepreneur, I spent my career at Procter & Gamble. I'm originally from Cincinnati, so came through the ranks of CPG. Cut my teeth there in sales, trying to figure out how we could grow the P&G portfolio of brands at big box retailers like Costco, Walmart, and increasingly online as Amazon and e-commerce was becoming a larger piece of the market share. And for my last 3 years at P&G, I had the really incredible opportunity to lead our Pampers innovation team for North America. And a lot of people say, what is innovation at Pampers? Like, how could you possibly innovate the diaper? Well, the fact is, it still often leaks in the night. So we had not quite done our job as well as we could. So we were hard at work on that. And I also had the really cool opportunity to lead our commercial innovation, which was really how could we better reach moms. So that meant spending a lot of my time at home with her, really understanding how technology was changing that consumer behavior. And I was so fascinated by the shift that was occurring. And I was actually on maternity leave from that role when I had my son Asher, who's now 4. I was about 2 months into maternity leave, so not sleeping well, reading a lot on my phone. And it was then that I came across a stat that over 40% of American women leave the workforce after having children. And that was just a stat I couldn't get out of my head. It was one that was very personal to me. I saw the impact that had had on my mom and the decision when she left the workforce and kind of the confidence and that lack of confidence in ever getting back to work. And I realized just how much bigger of an issue that was than her. And this was a massive, not only opportunity to help women get back to work, but stay in the workforce. And it was just something that I just couldn't stop thinking about. So I was able to extend my maternity leave and start talking to customers and talking to moms and found some pretty early validation that this was a business that really had merit. And so I decided to leave my job at P&G and start building this full time. So it has been an exceptionally rewarding journey. I feel so lucky to wake up every day and be building something I feel so passionate about. So the business model is a double-sided marketplace. So on our supply, we've got over 200,000 moms coming to us looking for amazing work opportunities that give them the lives that they want professionally as well as with their families. So they trust us, and that's something that we take very seriously. And then on the other side of our marketplace is the incredible companies that we get to partner with to help diversify their workforce, create better structures and policies to retain these women. So JLL is here. Many of our customers, the response from the business community has been really incredible. So we've tripled our growth over the last several years, but we're still very much in the building phase. So we've grown the team now to about 55 and are based here in Chicago, and it's just such a pleasure to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison, so much. We'll come all the way into the middle and start with Julie on this side.
Hi, so I'm Julie Roth Novak. I'm the CEO and co-founder of PartySlate. I started the company, I can't believe it, 4 years ago. We just celebrated our 4-year anniversary. And when I started the company, I was in the digital agency space, and I was planning all these large-scale events. And being a digital person, I was looking online for inspiration, and all I could find were kind of some stale wedding blogs, and I just wasn't inspired. And then I actually, fast forward, and moved to the suburbs. I said I would never move to the suburbs, moved to Glencoe. I'm never gonna leave the city, never, never, never. 3 kids later and a minivan. We sold the minivan. 3 kids later, I moved to the suburbs. I used a website called Houzz, H-O-U-Z-Z. Anyone knows Houzz? I know when I'm in a group of women, people are gonna know Houzz. So I'm obsessed using this incredible experience getting inspired for my kitchen. And I kept using this every day. My husband's like, are you still on Houzz? I'm like, oh, yes. And it clicked that this is what I needed for my event planning. So I set out to build, again, similar to the Mom Project, a marketplace for event professionals to share their work, build their brand, drive leads. So for example, this hotel has a beautiful profile page that shows how the corporate events, all the weddings they've done, and really lets you envision how your event could be here. And then for people like me planning a party, I can go find caterers, event planners, and venues. And so one thing I'm excited to talk about is just the journey of starting a two-sided marketplace, because one thing I didn't know in starting this business is it's really like starting 2 businesses, not one. You have your constituents that have high demands on the professional or the supply side, what they need, what they want. And then you have your consumers, or we call them party hosts, that have a lot of different needs and what they're looking for. They're very stressed, they're planning this big event, they need help. So our technology really makes the process of planning a large-scale event easier. And we really believe inspired events really inspire people. So the reason this event is not a webinar that you dial into is, we crave human connection, and we believe events can really lead to great things, whether it's raising money, whether it's inspiring someone to start a business, whether it's creating family memories. We're really all about helping people create this inspired event. So I'm really excited to be here. I am so impressed with this panel, and I'm just honored to be part of it.
Thank you very much, Julie. And Ita, take us home.
All right, yeah, so I'm the one that they flew in for this. I'm coming in from New York and heading straight back out, but I'm really excited to be here. Ita Ekpoudom, partner at GingerBread Capital, and I'm also an immigrant, born in Nigeria, and we moved to the US when I was 5, and I was on the classic Nigerian path of being doctor, lawyer, engineer, or disappointment. That's kind of it. So I was pre-med in college, and then I was like, this isn't gonna work for me. So what does a former, pre-med who majors in psychology and does her senior thesis on interpersonal rejection do? You go to Goldman Sachs, and that's what I did, So I started out my career on Wall Street. In between the 2 downturns, I like to say I time markets well. So I came in 03 and I left in 08, right before, in between the 2. And I guess I started my career at the other end of the spectrum of where I hope all of these women will end up. I traded preferred stock, which is an instrument used a lot here in the startup land, but trading preferreds for the likes of the Fannies, Freddies, and large multinational companies, where it means a different thing than here at the startup level, where you're growing the capital. And one of the things that I realized, I loved the people that I worked with, but I didn't necessarily love what I was doing. And when I left, I got tired of hearing articles like, oh, women don't want to, start high growth businesses. Women don't want to be CEOs. They want to do lifestyle businesses. And I was like, those are not the women I went to Princeton with, worked at Goldman with, went to Wharton with. Like, those are not the women that I know. And I wanted to change something and do something different about changing that narrative. And also, we all know that stat that we'll get to leadership parity in like 100 years. Nobody's waiting 100 years. No. And I'm like, please, no, we'll be dead. Like,
Not
no,
this room.
not this room. So, I was like, what can I do about that? And so I started my own advisory firm called Tigress Ventures, working with women entrepreneurs and investors. And it was along that path that led me to meet Linnea Roberts, who is the founder of GingerBread. And I joined her 18 months ago. And the fun backstory of GingerBread is that it has its roots in Chicago. Our Ginger is her mother, Ginger, who raised as a single mom, Linnea and her 3 brothers here in Chicago. She worked in publishing in the 80s, was fired, and used her $10,000 severance to start Minority Business Entrepreneur magazine, which she ran for 25 years. Ginger's still around and lives down in Southern California, so our Ginger is an ode to the real Ginger. And then bread, Linnea likes to say we're intergenerational. She's like, I don't know if you young kids know, but in the 70s, we called money bread. So that's what GingerBread means. And she, in her career before starting this, she was the co-head of tech banking at Goldman Sachs, so also 28-year Wall Street veteran. And so GingerBread, we're backing high-growth venture capital, back high-growth female-founded companies. So we are coming in kind of the Series A stage or later, writing checks around $250,000 up to $1 million in our first investment.
Thank you, Ita, very much. And thank you, all panelists. We're so excited to have you. And now let's get into some of the meat of our discussion today. So Ita shares a little bit around the tailwind and some of the, the tenacity that I think we all share to change these statistics. But Katerra shared some of the statistics when she welcomed us, and let's review them again. Women received 2.2% of venture capital funding in 2018. There were $130 billion deployed in early stage VC in 2018. Women received 2.2% of that. That was 5% of the venture capital deals, 2.2% of the dollars. Despite the fact that investing in women can drive the bottom line, still only less than 3% of women-founded companies make it to $1 million in revenue. Additionally, only 5% of 24 of Fortune 500 CEOs are female. So we see in both early and later stage, we see a gender gap in business leadership. So again, we're here today to examine the successes of these women and celebrate the momentum, that we can all drive to make a change here. And so I want to ask the panelists, in any order, to talk honestly about those headwinds. Given the context, given the numbers that you've just heard, why is it that you're on this panel today? How have you been able to defy the odds? To what do you attribute your ability to break the mold? Allison.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of hard days, probably, frankly, a lot more hard days than good days. And I think what has led me through those really dark days has been this higher order purpose of like what I feel like is my vocation. I think on the hard days, I think, and maybe that's pitching investors who just don't see the vision or share that vision with me. It's reflecting on the letters that I get from women and how we've changed our lives. And I feel incredibly indebted and so fortunate to be in this position, to be able to advocate for so many women that might not have that voice. So how could I squander that opportunity? Like, I believe that it is my calling in life. So
that's amazing. Wow, thank you. How about you guys? Julie?
Yeah, I'll just add, we're in the middle of closing our 4th round of funding, and I will tell you, it is quite stressful. I think one thing challenging about running, I'd say it leans more female-focused business events, and it tends to be about 80% women, 20% men, is when you get in a room of all men venture capitalists and they say things like, well, let me ask my wife and see what she thinks about it, or, you know what, aren't all parties the same? I'm like, oh, if you could talk to people that love throwing these events and they just don't have an understanding, and it's not meant to be overt kind of discrimination, but I do sense that if you don't have people that are like you in the room or can't relate to the category, it is harder to break through. I will say I have incredible male and female investors. But I do think, again, talk about headwinds, it is harder to get people excited when they can't relate or they don't see themselves in the business. So I live in Glencoe. There's someone else doing a startup that is in the automotive space, and he got way more, some Glencoe angel investors than PartySlate. I'm like, listen, I have this $800 billion addressable market. Yeah. I have this huge, incredibly talented team. We have 4x revenue, so much traction. But again, at the end of the day, if they can't get personally excited about it, the discrimination is, again, under the surface, but it continues. And so I won't say it's across the board, but I do think it is harder. And so I think back to what your point, what keeps us going? If you believe in your business and you love what you do, I always say to my team, there is nothing that is going to stop me. I don't care if I get 100 no's, I'm gonna keep going until I can no longer go anymore. And that's the kind of energy you need to have. So when people say, oh, they wanna be in the startup world and they have to seem so glamorous, I'm like, you better freaking love what you do or it will kill you. So you gotta love it. And if you do love it, even the down times, it'll get you through it. And I will also say, I have 2 people from my team today, Lauren and Tali, who run our marketing and our CFO. This team, they keep me going. I mean, you gotta have a great team that also believes in your vision and can build you up when you're feeling down, and you can build them up when they're feeling down. And so I would say, if you don't get a great team to surround yourself that has complementary skills, it cannot be done. And so I'm so grateful. I have an amazing co-founder. He's tech, product, analytics, and I'm sales, marketing. Give me a stage, and I'll get on it. You know, so we complement each other. He like hides, in his hoodie, like, don't make me go to the parties. He says that himself. So like, I'm okay. But I think you got to have a great team. You got to believe in what you're doing. You got to be a great storyteller, because it's not the analytics are great. You got to tell the story of your vision and how you're going to be a billion-dollar business, because these guys can't make their return without having a 2 or 3, home run hits. And so venture is very different than a lifestyle business. So if you're going to go venture, you better think big, or you're not going to get the funding.
So we've heard about passion and people and purpose. Agustina and Ita, how have you all been able to defy the odds? Anything different that you would add?
Well, I mean, I think I started my career in an industry that skews heavily male. On the trading desk in 2005, there were 5 women traders on the desk, and I think that was the most on Wall Street at that time. And I don't know if there's that many right now. I think that might have been a high watermark. But one of the things that when you tell me a stat like 2.2%, I'm like, that's an arbitrage. Like, I'm a trader. Like, when I see that, that just means these are undervalued assets that are not being given the right kind of market potential. And if you invest in them early, you will get outsized returns. And so when people are like, oh, you're working with women, is it a nonprofit? Is it philanthropy? I'm like, I'm an ex-trader at Goldman Sachs. No, I believe that you can make money and have women shine. And you know in your own households and women that you know that they get stuff done and they get lots of things done at the same time. So I am not, I nod and I'm like, no, we are a for-profit venture. But to that point, Linnea will speak to, she does a lot of philanthropy. She's on the board of Teach for America and the chair of the on the Child Mind. And she goes, I have an easier time getting friends to write me a $25,000 check to charity than to write a $25,000 check into an investment. Why is that? For women. So we've got to change that narrative for women, and that's part of the reason she's leading by example and setting up GingerBread. So getting women out there writing checks as well as being the founders is really important to us.
That's awesome. Great.
Yeah, so I mean, to add to those stats in my case, I'm also a Latina, right? So if you think about, like, I remember so clearly the day I arrived to San Francisco, and I was in the BART, in the metro, and I saw this sign that said, welcome to San Francisco, this is the startup city. And I'm like, yes, I am where I need to be, right? And I remember, like, I was so excited about starting the journey in Silicon Valley and like all these things that I had read about, right? And the reality is when I landed there and I started having meetings, and there's a lot of challenges that you're facing, right? But at the same time, I do feel it took me, I mean, it's been 5 years that I've been in San Francisco, and it took me about 2 years also to understand that I was a bit like victimizing myself, right? I was looking at myself from a point of view of like the disadvantages that I had, that I was foreign, that English was not my first language, I had an accent, that like I didn't understand how the US worked, I didn't study in the US, I didn't work in the US. And if you think about all these things, you say like, wow, like she's really disadvantaged, right? But then like, after I think it was 2 years in, there was something that clicked on me and said like, hey, actually like those things are what make me different. And those things are what makes me unique. So for me, similar as you said at that time, and what pushed me through the hard times, and when I think about that, I think about that if I had been doing this for myself, I would have quit like a million times. It was not for myself that I was doing it. It meant that I had a team in Uruguay that are great people building amazing high tech at the same level as Silicon Valley, that they were there working hard because they believed that we could make it. I was there because Uruguay, as a country, I wanted to show the world what amazing talent is there. I wanted to show them that. I wanted to inspire that little girl that has a dream and that wants to do something and that wants to achieve her goals, right? And I realized I was a role model for that. So when I was thinking about the hard times, and I can tell you there were a lot of hard times in 7 years, I was alone in San Francisco without knowing what to do. I was like, wait, I'm not doing this for myself. This has a much bigger cause. I'm just the message for the world to hear that this is possible. So I think that for me, it really pushed me through all of the hard times. And even like, I sometimes look at myself and I see myself like outside from this story, which is amazing. And I just had the privilege to be part of this story. And I think when I think about Ulta and why this was so important for me, it's because Ulta believes in similar values. They also embrace diversity. I mean, 92% of the employees at Ulta are women. 50% of the executive team is women. 50% of the board are women. So this can be done at a large scale. And this that I was fighting for myself in my company is the same that Ulta is fighting for. So I really felt like that makes me proud to be part of a company that actually, like, I grew my company and now I'm part of this bigger machine that believes in the same things.
It's amazing. So inspiring to hear what has motivated all of you, and interesting to hear many of the similarities around passion and purpose and tenacity. Let's jump to some of the differences in your journeys. I want to dig a little more deeply into your unique models and challenges and paths to success. So I'll start with Allison and ask a question for you. So the Mom Project is a B2B model selling into major corporations nationally, as you mentioned. How do you meet the needs of your customers while fulfilling your mission? Can you talk more about bridging that gap?
Yeah, so similar to as Julie said, we also are running sort of two parallel businesses. We've got a consumer business where we've got 200,000 women coming to us looking for great work opportunities to feel part of a community that's bigger than herself and really aligns with our mission. And then we've got our B2B business where we call on company leaders to really help and try to mobilize change in the workplace to not only bring more women into their organizations, but to also create better structures and policies. So I felt early on to serve Mom, I had to serve our customers first. I think this business model had been tried and sort of at a smaller scale, and it had come from the problem only from the vantage point of women and mothers. But I knew to really be able to create a viable, sustainable, growing business, like it had to work for companies, like there had to be strong use cases there. So tried to be really intentional around understanding what the customer needs were and listening. It's early on, I just had so many great discussions with our customers, and I realized there were like a few really strong use cases, whether it be working with Jane at JLL and seeing the emerging gig economy and how freelance work, project-based work could be a really great fit for moms who maybe don't want to work a 50, 60-hour work week, but they want to work with a great company like JLL JLL in a more flexible fashion. One of our other early customers was BP, and they had very aggressive diversity targets by 2020, and they had a gap in that management pipeline. We also saw that companies were getting more generous with their parental leave policies, and that was leaving gaps. So for me, the journey of our business is a constant listening session with customers and really figuring out what are the trends, what do companies need, and then how do I make that work for mom? Because they have to all work together. Marketplaces are hard, but I believe that if we can solve for companies, we can ultimately solve for moms too. So the magic is kind of making it all come together. It's not easy, certainly, and sometimes the two can be in conflict with one another, but I think really great marketplaces match that supply and demand, and they take a while to really get going, but once they get going, they're unstoppable.
So let's pivot over to Julie for maybe
living the
more
same
marketplace challenges. Chicken and egg businesses are really hard to start. Can you elaborate any more, Julie, on some of the specific ways in which PartySlate has done this?
The biggest challenge with the marketplace is you come at the beginning and you have an empty suitcase. So you're talking to, for example, for the event professionals, you're painting this picture, it's going to be great, it's going to, this big vision, there's going to be people coming that are planning parties, but until we get the content, we can't get the people to plan the parties, we can't get them to hire you. And so our main strategy is to really add a tremendous amount of value to the event professional side, regardless of leads or consumer traffic. And so what we did is we designed a beautiful, beautiful profile page that, for example, this hotel or an event planner or caterer can have for free, so there's no friction. In fact, in the early days, our interns would actually build the pages for them. It'd take 10 or 15 minutes, but these profile pages on PartySlate actually turned out to be better, better SEO, search engine optimized, better mobile optimized, more beautiful than their own website. So you may say, well, wait, isn't the Four Seasons Hotel has a beautiful site? But yes, it's about selling rooms. It's not about weddings and corporate events. You have to click 3 levels down, and there's like 4 little pictures, like, oh, yes, you should have your event here. On the Four Seasons or Radisson Blu's page, you see beautiful events, the full story of the event, not just 1 or 2, but 60 of photos from a beautiful wedding or a 50th birthday or a bar mitzvah or a gala. And so what we did is this page became so valuable in itself, even without traffic, that we drew the attention of the event professionals very early on. And so it took us about a year to get Chicago going. And then once you get the content, you get the marketing engine going, you get social media going, and the flywheel, as we call it, started turning. And then we started, once we had success in Chicago, we started selling premium memberships. Because at the beginning, you can't sell a premium membership because who are you elevating against? There's no one on the site, right? So it's like, I can't sell you anything yet. So it takes a while. And I will say, shout out to Silicon Valley and even East Coast that have more marketplace experience. They understand that the revenue does take time to kick in. We're fortunate now, we're seeing 4x revenue a year. You can tell I'm in fundraising mode. I'm like pitching right now. But you can, would you like
We actually had a call with her last week.
I'm pitching to her live. Okay, it's like Shark Tank.
How is she doing?
How am I doing? Okay. We've lowered our CAC by 100%. And no, I'm kidding. My CFO knows I'm actually seriously pitching. No, I'm kidding. But I will say that once you get the flywheel going of a marketplace, and I know the Mom Project is feeling that too, then all of a sudden you have a built-in moat or a competitive advantage. So we have 700,000 photos posted and videos posted from the leading event professionals. And not only that, they're connected to each other. They credit each other. The photographer, the caterer, all these people are working together over and over again. So we become almost like LinkedIn. So I'm a big LinkedIn user. I have 7,000 contacts. I don't know everyone, almost everyone on LinkedIn. I've been using it for a long time. And then I can see when we meet who we have overlap in contact. Similarly, on PartySlate, there's that value of who's worked with what venue. So there's a network effect that really creates a moat or a competitive advantage to a marketplace that gets in there early. So we believe, again, to our pitch, that we've gotten in early, and it can be a winner take all for the best marketplaces. Like you said, other people have tried to do what you do. If you get in with the top Fortune 500 companies and you're creating these relationships, it's going to be very hard for a new competitor to come in and take over your spot. So I think from a marketplace perspective, you have to pick the side of the market you're going to add the most value to start. And just knowing that you're going to have to provide some value to the other side, but you almost have like a major and a minor. And then as you tier up and you raise more money, you can have full-time teams focused on both sides of your marketplace. And obviously they work together, but it is very challenging to get it going. But once you do, the flywheel really turns, and you see companies like House, like Groupon, like others that have really broken out to being, huge global brands.
Well done, ladies. That's not easy on the marketplace side. So
And I know you have
congratulations to both of
marketplaces.
you. I understand that. Let's jump to a different kind of model and a different kind of challenge and opportunity right now for Agustina. You are a technologist used to working in highly iterative cultures on very complex engineering AR problems. Can you tell us about what it's like to bring that innovative spirit to a big publicly traded retailer?
Yeah. So, I mean, building startups is hard, right? You need to learn how to do everything. You need to learn how to do legal things, accounting, like raising money, getting clients, everything. And you're basically not prepared for any of that, right? So you need to figure out things, which is something that I think as a startup founder, it generates some kind of adrenaline of liking that, like being okay with that uncertainty. You get used to it and you want it more. So it's like, it's generates some kind of exciting in your life that is like, you don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow, right? And being fine with that, right? So I think when being part of Ulta, what changed for us is like, first, like we can focus on developing the technology and innovation, right? When I was a founder, I was thinking about 100 things apart from building the technology, and less than 50% of my time was actually thinking about the technology that we were building, but solving problems. So when I think about that, I think being part of Ulta, it allows us to focus on innovation. The other thing that is important is it also allows us to have an impact at such a big scale. Ulta has millions of clients, right? So of people using their technology, buying their products. So it's something that as a startup founder, you always dream of how can I have this huge impact, right? How can I impact millions of people with what I'm doing, right? So it gave me this opportunity, right? And the other thing is that, the third thing is, at Ulta, we were one of the first acquisitions that Ulta ever made, right? So it was new for both. And it was new for them. For us, we were figuring things out together, and we still are, right? The digital innovation team was created 5 months before the acquisition that was a year ago, right? So this team was also new. So I think that, in my case with Ulta and coming from the startup world, it's a thing that what makes sense to me is like they are figuring out things. There's huge growth at Ulta, so there's space to innovate, and there's space for every individual contributor to make an impact. It's not like we are stuck on the big corporation and we can't do anything. I actually feel we have a huge impact in the organization because there is space for it. When there is growth, there is space. So I think that is something super important. And when even like there's a huge challenge of startups joining corporations, right? And a lot of stories that are not nice. Some stories are like challenging even for the founders, right? So I think for us, agreeing even beforehand, what were we gonna work on, why this was important, what was our vision and what was their vision. And for me, going into this was not something unexpected. I knew what I had to build, I knew what was my responsibility, and I knew the impact that as digital innovation, as part of Ulta Beauty, we wanted to have.
All right, so Ita, shining a light on your path, and then we'll move on to just some quick closing questions. GingerBread is on a mission to generate outsized returns for female founders and female-led teams. Are you finding that many of your LPs are female as well? You've spoken about how bleak the stats are. Why is that? Are you improving the picture? And overall, do we think VC PE funding for women will improve in 2020 or not?
Yeah, so we're unique in multiple ways. One of which is the structure of our venture capital firm. So GingerBread Capital has no outside LPs. It is entirely funded from George and Linnea Roberts from their family office. So that's a fortunate situation. We didn't have to go raise a fund because that's one of the worst environments for women to have to do. But it also speaks to what Linnea cares about. She likes to say, she's like, I spent 28 years doing other people's deals. I never wrote a check for a private investment until I retired. So it wasn't that she didn't have money. It wasn't that, she never did it. And she was, leading acquisitions, IPOs, all of these kind of things. So if a woman like that isn't deploying capital in the private markets, what woman is? So that's one of the things, and she was like, when I looked around at myself, my peer group, we were part of the problem. We were on the sidelines. So in her next act, she has more energy than I do. In this next act, she's doing something about it by putting her personal money where her mouth is. And so that's one thing. And one of the things that leads to is it gives us flexibility to get to choose the kind of companies that we invest in, to not necessarily be driving in a traditional fund. You have a 5-10-year window of horizon that you need to return the fund. We have more of an evergreen structure. So we are in it with our founders for the long haul. So once we come in, we're able to come in later rounds, and that's why we focus. We're not focusing on the first check-in. We don't think that, we spend our careers looking at later stage companies and working with publicly traded companies. We don't think we'll see that great idea and be like, ooh, this is going to be a billion-dollar company. What we do think that we can do is make the introductions to those big multinational companies and get a company and a startup that's in a phase to grow in front of them in a way that they didn't have that kind of access. So that's really important to us. And then when we think about we're fairly agnostic on the industries which we'll invest. So here, and regions as well, we have 2 investments in the Chicago market. We've got Kim and Allie from As a Nails, my nails are looking fabulous because of them. They're one, and then Eileen Murphy of Think Circa. Those are 2 Chicago-based founders in our portfolio. Very different concepts, but when you look at who these founders are, there's this grit, there's this resilience, and there's this seeing a white space that wasn't there before that they feel that they're uniquely qualified to deliver on.
Awesome, awesome. All right, well, I'm gonna bring us home here with I've just got one final question for each of you. So we'll do a little lightning round here. Maybe we'll move over to Allison, since we've heard about some of Julie's fundraising, current successes, it sounds like, momentum. Allison, you've raised multiple rounds of equity financing for the Mom Project. Could you just tell us a little bit about the process and your decision making and your overall fundraising strategy?
Yeah. So we tried to raise venture early on, probably like as early as 3 months into the business, unsuccessfully for about 18 months. It was an incredibly discouraging process that kept us away from our customers, going to coffee meetings that were leading to nowhere. So I think to me that was just like very frustrating because it felt like there was no basis of merit. Because we had customers, we had revenue, like we clearly had like this value proposition, but that didn't matter. I didn't go to Harvard, I didn't go to Stanford, like I didn't check all these boxes. So that to me just like felt very defeating. But I knew like my North Star was like revenue. Like we have customers, like let's just keep going, keep going. So we personally financed the business, like getting into our savings, like we took a bet. So we kind of kept the business very capital efficient while we self-funded to a point where we felt like we could get the business to a point at the Series A where it was at enough revenue that the decision felt much less subjective and more sort of like, what are your metrics? Because I knew if we could get to like a metric-based decision, like we would present well. So that was really the strategy, and we ended up getting really fortunate. Initialized Capital co-led our Series A, the founder of Reddit, Alexis Ohanian, better known as the husband of Serena Williams. So I say he's like my megaphone. Whatever we do, Alexis, just go tweet it. So, and Julia, who you know from Booth. So we feel really incredibly fortunate, and so I hope to be able to I feel so lucky that we were able to defy that odds. We've now raised 11 million in capital in total. So I think, for those of us who have sort of made it, a tremendous amount of gratitude for the people that got us there, and my team, who is also here, who have made it possible.
Fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Agustina, can you tell us a little bit about failure? You've had much success with your recent exit. It's so exciting. I think we hear about all of the good stories, right? We hear about the wins, we hear about the outcomes, we hear about the 10Xs, but all of us have said that most days are really, really hard. And that most of the time is spent pushing a big boulder uphill and not knowing if you're going to get there. So can you shine a light, just maybe be specific about one of those failure stories that you experienced?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest failure stories was when I actually arrived to Silicon Valley thinking somebody was going to give me a check in like a month, right? I remember talking with one of my angel investors that is from the US, from Palo Alto, and he introduced me to all of his friends, right? And he was traveling, he was in China, and I went to all these meetings, and I thought that they were gonna give me money, right? And I remember I talked with him, I couldn't get a hold of him like a month later. I'm like, Chris, this is not going like well. And he's like, wait, did you think you were actually gonna raise money? Like, it was just for you to meet them and like make the connections. I'm like, oh, really? Yeah, so I think when you face investors also, like my biggest learning from that is you're gonna have a lot of meetings, a lot of them are gonna tell you no, right? But over time, I realized that the key for this is really like doing a map of what are they telling you. So I used to write down after the meetings exactly what were the main things that they were telling me and what were the main reasons why they were telling me no. And then after I had like 40 meetings, I imagine the level of like mental stress, right, that you're going through. And I see this map of things, and then you start connecting them and you say, okay, wait, they're all saying the same thing, right? Maybe I'm not ready for it, as you said, right? Maybe sometimes you're just not ready. Like Agustina 5 years ago was not ready for that, right? So that helped me identify and understand what were the things that I needed to prove to make it happen, right? And at that time, I remember it was like me moving from Uruguay. Imagine you meet this girl that comes from Uruguay with a dream of Silicon Valley and like all their team in Uruguay, no clients in the US. I'm like, yeah, I have all these clients in Latin America. And you're like, why would I give you money, right? I mean, you're a huge risk, right? I mean, it's reasonable that they think that, right? Because I couldn't generate the trust that is needed for them to actually invest in me, right? So that's when I realized that one of the main things that was not working was that I hadn't proven my success in the market. I didn't understand the US market because I'm not from here. I didn't understand how like retail worked in the US. Like, why would they use my technology? And as we said, also many of them were men, so they couldn't even relate to my solution that I was creating. So at that time, I realized that I had to have clients in the US. It didn't matter what I had outside of the US. So 3 months, I remember we worked so hard. The only thing I did was trying to sign pilots with retailers in the US. And we signed 2 pilots. And I went back to the investors and I told them, hey, we have 2 pilots. They are paying me for them. Like, it's not free. So they actually want what I'm building. And they were like, okay, well, like that was enough for some of them, not all of them clearly, to actually give me the money and say, hey, okay, I saw this, you worked on this, you made it happen, then, okay, this is like the trust that I needed, right? So I think it's important when people are telling you no to understand why are they telling you no and work on that, because there is a reason behind it. Is it trust? Is it like that you're not ready in terms of numbers? Is it that, I mean, there is a clear reason. So you need to like really dig into that reason because it can be solved if you understand it. And I think another thing that is important that once a Stanford professor told me was figure out which is your broken window. I remember I was in this class of a Latino entrepreneurship program, which I was sponsoring, clearly like, again, something that I went through because of my background. And he told me, there's something that is not working. What is it, right? What is this broken window that then makes all the house cold, right? You need to figure that out because that is not allowing you to grow. So for me, that was a very visual thing that I started thinking, like, what's going on? Why is this not working, right? And I think for me, it went back at that time of the importance of being aligned with your team and the importance of all going on the same direction. I think as a startup, each person is so key, and the same happens in big enterprises within the teams, right? Each person is so key that if you're not aligned, it can ruin everything. Yeah. So identifying what is the problem and doing something about it fast is key, because every day is money that you burn and money that you don't have in your bank account. So I think being really aware of that, what are your broken windows? Do you have a broken window? Which is it? Do something about it is key to actually solve it and move forward.
Love that. Thank you so much. So we're gonna end. I'm gonna ask Julie and Ita to close us off with final pieces of advice. We've heard about closing your broken windows. We've heard about the tenacity around the fundraising process and the business building process from all of these amazing women. So last two pieces of advice from Julie and Ita for the room, and then we'll say thank you to all of you and keep you on schedule.
I guess the mentality I have is when I get a no, I had enterprise sales experience, so you're kind of a 50-50 win-loss ratio, and that's, you're killing it, you're doing well. But with raising venture capital, it's like 40 meetings and one yes. Okay, so you have to change your mindset, and I really like the learning perspective of it's not, first of all, it's no for now. I always say it's not a no, it's no for now. And people that had said no before have said yes now based on meeting those metrics. So I always keep relationships, but then I also think change your mentality of it can't be a rejection mentality, it has to be a learning mentality. And so I really like what you said about that. Take it as a learning mentality, otherwise it will kill you. And you keep going from the learning and getting better. And they have pattern recognition. They see hundreds and hundreds of companies. So don't be quick to say they don't understand the business. Instead, find the nuggets, because everyone will tell you different things. Take the nuggets back to your leadership team and then digest that as a team and decide what you can take with you to improve the business. And so that's my advice.
Ita, any final advice for the room?
I mean, I think from the perspective of talking to funders, I will never write a check for you after meeting you one time. No matter, I might like you after one meeting, but I'm not going to write you a check after one meeting. So really understand the process of relationship building and really being able to stay in contact and follow up. But then also realize, make sure that you are trying to build a venture. If you're going after a VC, make sure your business is a venture backable business. Because VC is very sexy right now. Everybody thinks, oh, I need to just go get like $1 million from a VC and I'll be fine. But you're giving away ownership in your company. Once you drop below 50%, that's no longer your company. You could be ousted from your own company. So really think about that and make sure that the capital that you're seeking is the capital that's right for your business.
I just want to say thank you so much to this panel and to the room. Thank you for sharing your story so honestly. And our sponsorship.
What a great conversation. Thank you so much. I feel honored to be on the dais with you all. You did a great job. So, good afternoon. My name is Carrie Heitman. I'm Executive Vice President and Chief Legal Officer of NiSource. And we are a gold sponsor of this event, as was stated earlier. And I was telling somebody, I think I'm one of the original sponsors of the Women's, what was the Breakfast Series. It started probably maybe almost 20 years ago. So it really, and there's nothing more empowering to me than being in a room full of a lot of women and a few men as well, right? We need those men with us. So I want to thank everyone who's here today. This is all about your attendance and your support of this event. So they gave me like some comments to say about what you said, but I would never be scripted. That's not my thing. So here's what I want to say. I heard the word tenacity multiple times, and let me throw a few more words out, adjectives that I believe really reflect your whole experience and what you talked about. Relentless, selfless, fearless, team players, your eye on the ball, you know what you need to do. And it is so impressive because many of you are younger than I am, and I see your drive and your passion and your ambition and then your success, and I say, wow, I mean, this is great. And I really appreciate your advice that you gave to everybody. So now I have a request for all of you. I love the idea of the power of the purse string, right? So if you're sitting out here and you're one of those people that has those checkbooks and you could write the check that these ladies talked about needing so many times, and others like them, women in startup businesses, write the check. Look at the success that will ensue, right? And if you're looking for any of the services or products or things that these ladies sell, right, use them. It's really helpful if you actually support minority businesses. And I love minority businesses, women-owned businesses. So, hey, you guys have the ability to help them succeed and to help others like them succeed. So use that power wisely, please. So with that, I want to thank the Executives Club for doing another great event. How do you find women like this to be on the stage all at one time and to motivate us and to teach us the way they have? So thank you, Executives Club. I don't think that this program ever fails. That's why I've liked the program for so long and supported it. I hope to see all of you at the next event, which will be next year with Elaine Wynn and Melody Hobson, our own Melody Hobson. If you've ever seen Melody speak, you know it's always going to be great. So looking forward to that event on January 9th as we continue the Women's Leadership Series. So thank you all. Have a wonderful day. Be safe and have a great holiday season. Thank you.